Well, good evening, all you seekers of greater light and truth out there. It is March 13th, 2025. We are the Violet Flame Triad of the
Yeah,
Millennium.
that's good, but it's March 14th.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Is it the 14th? Well, whatever day it is, want to welcome you all here and thanks for showing up. Uh, yeah, last week we talked about how each nation is endowed with certain natural resources. And one of the reasons for that is so they can learn how to share with other nations because, one nation can't have it all. Rather than just trying to acquire lands, territories, and other nations' resources for their own personal good and use, we need to learn how to share, and that's what the next step in national evolution is all about. And of course, that happens best when people, as individuals, learn how to share. And that's one of the reasons we get married. So, two people learn how to share with each other. And then families learn how to share, communities, your religious groups, your businesses, and your friendship base expands as you learn how to share. You share time and your ideas and resources, and see how you can work together to do good. Anyway, and that's why we do um, have group endeavor, so we can uh, learn not just peace and goodwill, but how to give of ourselves and our resources. So if anybody needs some extra cash, Ed's got plenty and he's willing to
Come
share.
on, come on over.
Okay. All right. I gotta go. No. So anyway, he was talking about the destructive element of the Axis powers of Japan and Italy and Germany, and how they were all self-motivated. And the time for that particular national construct is over. And fortunately, he saw that the end of the war would favor the Ally powers, which it did. So he's talking about that here, and the growth of the spirit of cooperation, that the state exists for the benefit. He says that the state exists for the benefit of the individual, and the state is there to make sure that the individual has maximum amount of freedom to think, act, speak. Um, the sovereignty of the individual is what reigns supreme. So we're going to read a little bit more about that here. I'll start off with a paragraph. We are studying the externalization of the hierarchy by Alice A. Bailey as she channeled the Tibetan master Djwhal Khul. We're on page 375, and we're talking about how humanity evolves through different cycles and ages, whether they're astrological or rays, the seven rays. Cycles come and cycles go. You have to take what you can from each one and move into the next with an open mind and open and flexible. He says, "This is the old order which must pass." He's talking about the powers, the Axis powers. Um, And he says, they regard the individual as of no value and hold that he exists only for the benefit of the state. They believe that the state is the sole unit of importance and that only their particular state counts. They would perpetuate the ancient evil of force and war and would and do resort to unheard of cruelties in the effort to raise their state to supreme eminence. Well, that's what Hitler tried to do. Uh, how did that work out for him? He rose up against forces much stronger than himself in the end. So this is the old world, the old order which must pass, but its dangers must be recognized. For its abolishing, the new nations are fighting. The United Nations are fighting, sorry. But the difficulties are many, even though the spiritual strength of all good men is on their side, and the forces of light are fighting to aid them. The nationalistic spirit is not dead as yet in any country. It must be helped to die. Minorities with historical backgrounds but no territorial rights are clamoring for a place to call their own and in which to build up a nation. The small nations are full of fear, wondering what place in the family of nations they will be permitted to hold, and whether the evil plans of the Germans will spare any of their citizens eventually to form a nation. The demand for national recognition is widespread. The emphasis upon humanity as the important unit is little heard. Those nations impede the path of progress who live in the memory of their past history and boundaries who look back upon what they call a glorious past, resting upon the recollection of national or empire rule over the weak. This is a hard saying, but the nationalistic spirit constitutes a grave peril to the world, if perpetuated in any form, except as contributory to the good of humanity as a whole. It will throw the world after the war back into the dark ages and leave men no better off than they were, even though there may have been 20 years of travail and agony. So, what do you get out of that? Each nation has to be respected as a sovereign entity. And the people,
That's what's called nationalism.
yeah, and people have to be free to choose which government they prefer and how they want to be ruled, whether it's through a democracy or a king or however they want to be ruled. Let them worship how, where, what they may. Yeah. Any other comments on that, Ed?
Well, there's always the man who would be king.
Well, it's okay to have a king if you have a good king, a righteous king.
If you're in a monarchy, yeah. Right?
But if you have a wicked king, like the Sun Kings, like the Louis, that take from the masses to enrich themselves, it's a form of slavery. Versailles took, I think, 17% of the gross national product to cater to the needs and the whims of the kings and their royalty, their little circle in Versailles. Ran the country into the ground, into poverty. And the people became so impoverished that they ran out of food. And they went to Marie Antoinette and they said, we're suffering, we're starving, we're out of bread. We're out of we're out of bread. And she said, oh, what a minor inconvenience. Well, why don't you just eat cake? Made them so mad they dragged her out of Versailles. You can still see the axe marks where they opened the door and they dragged her out and guillotined her. Okay, so the rights of the individual have to be respected at all costs. And this is what World War II was ultimately about. Am I right about that, Cindy?
Yes, you are.
Okay, why don't you read the next paragraph or two and see what else we can discover.
We could take the nations one by one and observe how the nationalistic, separative, or isolationist spirit, emerging out of an historical past, out of racial complexes, out of territorial position, out of revolt, and out of possession of material resources, has brought about the present world crisis and cleavage in this global clash of interests and ideals. But it would profit not. The intelligent student of history who has no nationalistic bias knows well the facts, and is deeply concerned today with the processes which must be brought to bear to end the world strife. He knows that the efforts to attain national aggrandizement, a place in the sun, Lebensraum, Lebensraum is, I have a note here. It says Lebensraum means living space in German.
Hmm.
Yeah, apparently they instituted this Lebensraum ideal, which means they didn't think they had enough space in Germany and they had to spread their borders.
So Lebensraum means living space.
Living space, yeah, not enough of it, according to the German.
Yeah.
Yeah, financial supremacy, economic control, and power must end. At the same time, he realizes that if humanity is to get rid of these evil products of selfishness, certain basic values must be preserved. Past and present cultures and civilizations are of great value. The peculiar genius of each nation must be evoked for the enriching of the entire human family. The new civilization must have its roots in and emerge out of the past. New ideals must come forth and be recognized for that the events and education of the past will have prepared the people. Humanity itself must be the goal of interest and effort, and not any particular nation or empire. All this has to be wrought out in a practical, realistic manner, divorced from visionary, mystical, and impractical dreams, and all that is done must be founded on one basic recognition: human human brotherhood, expressing itself in right human relations.
Well, we could stop right there. That's what it's all about. Right human relations. That's what makes the world go round or not. Um, you have to, look at your brother, treat your brother as yourself and listen to him. Listen to his needs, his wants, his worries, his woes, and be compassionate no matter what, no matter what, because they all have a story to tell and they want to tell it. That's one of the reasons I don't have anybody, a helper in my line of work, because this way I can spend quite a bit of time or as much as I want with my customers. And, after 3 or 4 years of working with these people, they really open up. They invite me in, come on in, have lunch, have coffee, have what do you need? Sit down. We tell you our story. So, to be compassionate, really you have to connect on different levels with people. And I think that's what he's getting at is in a real brotherhood, we get to know each other on deeper and deeper levels. Huh, Ken?
Deeper and deeper.
Deeper and deeper.
DK says somewhere that someday all the countries will unite together, much like the United States are together as one country. That all the countries will be united together like that.
Well, wasn't that the purpose of the League of Nations, to bring the nations together that could cooperate and see eye to eye? And that way, the smaller nations need to be protected from tyranny. And the only way that happens is if you form a confederation of nations so that, the weak have just as much privilege and right as the larger nations. So, you know, to grow and expand and live and move and have their being. One thing about our country, we've got lots of land that can be developed. I don't think we'll ever run out of it. We've always got the lavas people can build upon. Anyway, hey, why don't you read a little bit there, Ken? Thank you, Cindy.
The revolt so widely prevalent against the vague visionings of humanitarians, dreamers, is based upon the fact that out of the welter of words and the plethora of plans, little practical value has emerged and nothing sufficiently potent to end the old and horrid ways of life. Nothing really effective has been done prior to the war to offset the visible and shrieking evils. Palliative measures have been tried and compromises made for the sake of peace, but the basic evils of national ambition, economic disparity, and virulent class distinctions, hereditary or financial, still remain. Religious differences were rampant, racial hatreds widespread, and the economic and political orders remained corrupt, fostering party, social, and national strife. Today, the war has cleared the air, the issues are clear, and at least we know what has been wrong. In their demonstration of supreme selfishness, national ambition, racial hatred, and utter barbarity and cruelty, plus their complete lack of all humanitarian feeling, the Axis powers have served the race by showing us what must not and shall not be permitted. The democracies have awakened also to their weaknesses and to the realization that true democracy does not as yet exist, owing to the widespread political corruption and to the ignorance and unpreparedness of the masses for true self-government. Imperialistic powers such as Great Britain are publicly repudiating the old points of view and are forging ahead in the task of world reconstruction. The conservative reactionary is no longer popular. The small nations are realizing their helplessness and their complete dependence upon their larger neighbors. And these, in their turn, are recognizing the responsibilities to the weak and small. People everywhere are waking up and beginning to think, and never again can they sink back into the negative condition of the past. There is faith on every hand that a new and better world order is possible, and that it is even probable.
Yeah, once you've reached a certain point of enlightenment, it's impossible to go back unless you begin to use your newfound abilities and strengths and knowledge for evil purposes, which can and has happened.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to see another Hiroshima.
No, I don't think so. But, one of the things he's saying that the war served was to wake people up and get them to think. Because before the war, people were complacent. They weren't moving very far, very fast. And, as destructive as the war was, look at all of the constructive technologies that took place that happened because of the war. Nuclear energy for one. Just, you know. So learn as we go, I guess, is the lesson here, and stay awake and vigilant. And take care of your smaller neighbors and those who aren't as fortunate as yourself. So how do we express this goal? Well, Brother Ed's going to read on and tell us all about it, if he would.
Well, I'm going to tell us all about it, but I'm going to tell you that we have to get rid of the selfishness and greed that we see throughout many of the governments of the world. And what we just read, I think we have to really look at it again and see that we need to work toward that.
Well, how do you see that happening?
Well, things have to get bad enough before people are willing to make any kind of changes. So I think that we're heading in that direction.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, things are getting better for me. Maybe
I'm
that's
glad.
because I've been through the hoop. I've had an operation that took me to a lot of pain, so I'm waking up. Pain will wake you up, let me tell you. Going
Well,
through.
I've been there. I've been there. I've had my time. I've gone through a lot of things. I found that in business you can go past zero in a hurry if you're not careful. And I found that there's more power in a group, and I found that that was the secret of my success was the right group.
Well, that's it. Teamwork makes the dream work.
So anyway, how can we simply and clearly express the goal of this hoped for new world order and briefly word briefly the objective which each person and nation should hold before itself when the war ends and opportunity faces each and all? It is surely that every nation, great and small, with the minorities given equal and proportionate rights, should pursue its own individual culture and work out its own salvation as seems best to it. But that each and all should develop the realization that they are organic parts of the one corporate whole and that they must contribute to that whole all that they have and are. This concept is already present in the hearts of countless thousands of and carries with it great responsibility. These realizations, with intellectually developed and wisely handled, will lead to right human relations, economic stability based on the spirit of sharing, and to a fresh orientation of man to man, of nation to nation, and of all to the supreme power to which we give the name God. This is the vision, and it is holding countless thousands are studying in the path of duality, in the path of duty. And for it, many in every nation are prepared to work. In spite of the background of an evil past, in spite of the present world carnage, in spite of the almost overwhelming psychological problems confronting humanity, in spite of political machinations and old-time diplomacy, in spite of the improbability of any quick success, there are thousands ready to start with the preparatory work. The number of men and women of vision and of goodwill is now so large, especially among the United Nations, that there is a chance of eventual success, and it is possible today to make a start. The outline of the future world structure can already be dimly seen. The failure, complete, obvious, intermediate of the old order and the old world is everywhere recognized. The will to good is growing. One of the interesting things which it is helpful to recognize is that the vision is more clearly seen by the man in the street and by the intelligentsia than it is by the exclusive classes. Through the material difficulties of life and by resultant processes of thought, then no changed conditions are necessary and that there is no alternative.
Well, that's good to know that the will to good is growing. I'm finding that people are waking up, people I'm talking to on a daily basis. Um, they're asking questions they want to know. They're figuring things out in their own mind. Are you finding that to be true, Andrew?
Um, Yeah, now you all do a lot more interaction in the physical world, but right before I jumped in this meeting, I was listening to a space on social media on the Twitter platform or X, Elon's big platform, and every single night they have spaces on, I think this one was on near-death experiences, out of body, dream work, um, visions, that kind of thing. Every night there's a space where people who have had encounters with paranormal come together and talk. And not that there's not a lot of other, places people talk about crypto coins and politics and all these other things, but the fact that you have consistently, that I've noticed for the past 3 years, you have a strong crowd that really is exploring these things. You may find 15, 20 people talking about these, or you may find 200. And sometimes these people talk for an hour, and sometimes they talk for 6 or 8. And you can come and go, you can listen if you want to get up on the stage and raise your hand, you can talk. And so it's just like a Zoom meeting that goes on and on. And of course, there's no video, but that's the way the Twitter platform works. So, long story short, I have seen nothing but a steady increase over these past few years of the number of people who want to come out and do exactly what we're doing here. And instead of something that's a little more structured, which you can, invite people to, and they can come to this meeting or JJ's meeting or these kinds of Zoom meetings. I think you all know this, and if you don't, I mean, I know Ed does because he's always sending me messages about this. But the social media platforms are really popular for these kinds of things. So I just point out that for people who can't always get out there and do it in person, it's very expensive to travel and to go to workshops and all that. You don't have to leave your home. You can do it, day in and day out. And some people do it for the money, but that's not why I'm there. So I listen. Sometimes I see a place I can, chime in, and we can talk another time or somewhere else, but there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there. So, yes, people are interested in this, I would say more than I've seen in my 50 years.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's like uh it doesn't take much to open the door with even strangers, and they've you can tell they've been thinking about things politically, socially, economically, pickily, and they're thinking about it, and they want to have verbal intercourse. They want to, well, what do you think about this? What's your impression? I said, well, on which venue, and they'll pick something that they're interested in, and they want to talk. People want to talk, and that's why I'm finding that spiritual philosophy, just those two words, open a lot of doors. You know, they don't want to talk necessarily about religion, but they want to talk about ideas, philosophies, um, uh, you know, progressive notions, where we're heading, what's going to get us there. And, they want to express some form of higher idealism on a social basis, like you're talking about, Andrew. And so I think people are hungering for that kind of interaction. You
I,
know,
I would just point out, yeah, and a lot of times they don't know, can you go talk to your pastor or your priest or whatever? Sure, if you just had a question. And like my mother's in her late 80s, and her Sunday school class does a lot of things. They do chair yoga and all that. But if she had, questions beyond things I talk to her about sometimes, she doesn't really have an immediate place that she would turn. So that's why I appreciate what you're doing, Curtis, and how you update us with that. You're talking to someone that you're working with or a friend or whatever, you ask them a question, you introduce your book, and pretty soon, even if they're just looking at it, you've already raised their interest. And then, maybe you're lucky you get them hooked. But I think that there's so many people that do have these questions, but conventionally we don't always know where to turn. We're not sure. Like, I can't say something to family or a certain teacher or something. So a lot of times people are just, I think they're not sure where to go, and maybe they find their way through a new age bookstore or that section of the Borders, and they pull a book off the shelf. But unless they see it somewhere, I think I just think my point is that they really are looking for these answers, and then that's where we come in because it's not that we necessarily have them, but we know how to help get people toward what they're really looking for. Um, and I think that's why, since I haven't heard it, I'm looking forward to catching up about, at one point there was going to be a Tuesday group, and I hadn't heard anything more about it, Curtis, but I look forward to every opportunity that you and JJ and associated groups are getting together to bring people in, even if it's just two or three at a time to talk about these things.
Well, I've got about 100 people reading this book, and the next step will be to, invite them to meet each other and do a Zoom. And but yeah, you're right. They're looking, but they don't know really where to find it. They're not finding the answers in organized religion, old dogma. Um, where do they turn? But when somebody and Ed's having a good time. He talks to people at the senior center when he has lunch over there, and he finds that they're listening. They listen to every word you have to say, don't they, Ed?
Well, I find that there's some people that are open-minded, and some people are very polarized in the old-time religion.
Yeah, and but the only way you're going to differentiate between the two is to ask them questions.
Right.
One of the CSI shows, the guy said, you can find out anything you want to find out on any subject from any person if you know which questions to ask. And that's it. What's your purpose for existence? What's your next step in your personal evolution? What is it that you really need in your life to make you more complete or more happy? And people will say, well, I need to express kindness or love or compassion, or I need to do something more, but I'm not sure what that is. I hear that. I don't know what to do. I kind of feel stuck. I say, well, you need to talk to Cindy. She'll pull you out of the mud.
Well, I think people that are satisfied with the way things are, and those are the people that you can't really get to. There were people I knew in California that they'd say, "Well, I like my religion to be simple. I don't want to be bothered with the facts." Yeah.
Yeah, don't confuse me with my mind's made up. Don't confuse me with facts. Yeah, well, we're going to disturb them. If they think World War II wasn't disturbing, well, we'll disturb their higher egos. Ask them all the right questions. I think reincarnation is going to be a very strong dividing line. Um, how many cultures, religious cultures, want you to believe, oh, this is one lifetime is all we have, just once, and we're going to shatter that idea. Huh. Who wants to stay dead? Not me.
Yeah, I tell people that one day you're going to wake up and find that you're dead.
You're going to wake up dead. Yeah. And you're going to want to come back. My question is, well, if you lived 200 years ago and you could look down at all the new technology that's happening today, wouldn't you want to be a part of it? Wouldn't you want to drive a fast car, 100 miles an hour, talk on the phone, all the things that we have, modern conveniences that people just did not have 200 years ago, but wished they had. Now you got them. Of course, you're going to want to be reborn. What force would stop you? I can't imagine God sitting up there and saying, "No, you can't not be reborn. No, you just one time. Now you just behave yourself and
But
put your
you
head."
have to you have to take a little broader view than that. You have to realize that, you know, we don't want to go back to the second grade again, and we don't want to go back to high school again now that we've graduated.
Nope. Well, speaking of graduating, why don't you read on there, Brother Andrew, and see what else we have to say about tasks ahead.
You bet. Now we either got to this is the vision or the next paragraph. I had lost track.
The task ahead.
Thank you. That's the one. The task ahead falls into two categories. First, directing mass thought and energy into right lines so that good motive and wise action can bring in the desired era of right human relations and eventual peace. Secondly, educating those whose apathy and lack of vision impede progress. This latter phase of the work is well underway, and a powerful, though small, group among the world leaders is voicing certain general propositions which must be regarded as imperative when world readjustment starts. Their demand is for a new governing principle in politics and in education, founded on universally recognized right human or universally recognized human rights, and on the need for spiritual unity and the need to throw overboard all separative theological attitudes and dogmas in every field of thought. There is a mounting appeal not only for international understanding and cooperation, but also for class understanding. These demands are being expressed from every platform and pulpit and through the pen in every land, except in those sad lands where freedom of speech is not permitted. The average man looks on at all of this and is frequently overwhelmed by the magnitude of the unfolding task, by the diversity of opinions expressed, by the many suggestions, plans, and schemes for world betterment, and by a sense of his own utter unimportance and futility in the face of this gigantic human undertaking. He asks himself many questions. Of what use am I? What can I do? How can my little voice be heard? And of what use is it when heard? What part can I play in the vast arena of world affairs? How can I prove myself useful and constructive? How can I offset my ignorance of history, of society, of political and economic conditions in my own country, not to speak of other lands? Humanity is so immense, its numbers so vast, and its races so many that he feels himself a helpless, insignificant unit. He has no academic or general training which would enable him really to grasp the problems or contribute to their solution. What, therefore, can the man in the street, the businessman in his office, the woman in her home, and the average citizen everywhere contribute at this time and in the future to the helping of the world? It is for this type of person I write.
Okay. Well, that's a good place to end the reading for this week. So, what can we do? Of what use is the individual? What can the individual do? Uh, People on the street, oh, I'm just one person. There's nothing much I can do. I'm just a little groveling soul down here trying to make ends meet.
Well, with that idea, that's all you can do. I think that you have to set your intention on what's possible.
Yeah, there's a lot one person can do. I used to have, when I lived in LA, we had those in-home play shops, and I would have a host. It could be a couple or one person, and I would work with that host, and we would invite as many people to this play shop as possible, and ideally 6 to 12 couples, and most of them didn't know each other. And then I'd bring in a gal that would a dancer, and we'd get all these maybe I think one of them we had like 16 people, and uh, we'd get them all acquainted, we'd get them all up and dancing and break the ice, and then uh, get them in little groups of three and let them talk to each other and find out, what's stressing them and what their lives are about, what they wanted to share with each other. And then I'd do a 20-minute presentation, and then we'd have dessert, and it'd last about 2 hours all told. And people walked away with a different point of view, a different attitude. We would focus on maybe 10 ways to release stress, or how to make a difference in your life or in the world, or how to connect with a stranger, if it was so necessary. Maybe, there's always reasons to connect with people, even if it's just to make a new friend. So, we had people that said, "Yeah, I want to participate in that because it's something that we can do that will make a difference. Even though it's small, it only made a difference in the lives of 15 or 16 people. It still made a difference and shook them up a little bit. It had an impact." So, you have to ask yourself, yeah, we got this high-minded, forward-thinking group. Um, we meet once a week to stimulate each other, motivate each other, support each other. But what do we do when we're not um, in concert? What do we do when we're out on our own? You know? And Ken is over there in the Philippines with people. He's thinking, well, what can I do? But those people out there, they need love and support just like anybody else. So each of us has to figure out how to use our particular and specialized talents and resources and knowledge and how to put them to good use if you're going to be a real disciple of Christ. That's what you have to do. We can give each other ideas and plus we can plus each other's ideas, uh, but each of us has to take this passion that we generate as a group. We have to take this passion and spread it around. That's how you make a difference.
On page 515 of this book, DK goes into um, the question of what is it that we can all do. And he gives several suggestions over the next 2 or 3 pages of what he thinks we could all be doing.
Well,
So it's
what does he have to say?
well, it's a lot to read, but he says, first, teach the law of evolution and its inevitable corollary, perfected men. Men must be taught that such great souls exist and exist entirely to serve their fellow men. Then he goes on about that. Then, secondly, disciples and aspirants must on every hand live harmonious and love. And the violent vibrations of one's surroundings must be stilled by a strong counter vibration of love. And he says that's something that we can all do. Thirdly, esoteric organizations. I thought about the molecule when I read this. Yeah, I just came across this week doing something else. Thirdly, esoteric organizations must stand for all that tends to unity. All types of work, all the exterior efforts of the many organizations must meet with loving cooperation and assistance. And then he goes on about that. And then he has several other things.
What are the
Over
what are the
two or three.
pages there, Cindy?
What's that?
What are the pages? The page number.
Page 515, and it starts about the second paragraph. And now, what is it that you can all do?
So
And
you've
then
been
it goes,
reading ahead, huh?
what's that?
You've been reading ahead.
Well, I was looking up something else, and I came across this. Yeah. So, and I thought, well, that's definitive right there. So, anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah, that's real. Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna jump ahead and read that. So let's all during the week go to page 515 and see what he has to say.
Well,
Uh,
my opinion is that there are some simple truths that we should be focused on, and those are some of the simple truths. I try to tell people that but we humans are only the fourth kingdom of nature, and I describe the other kingdoms even and try to tell people what the fifth kingdom is, and I think that's one of the things that he's hinting toward here.
well, yeah. Um, I got tired of repeating myself over and over and over. Now I just give them a book and I show them the chapters and the articles, and I say it starts off simple and it gets more and more complex. It goes into the kingdoms of nature. It goes into reincarnation. It's the article, Stand Up for Your Life. It quotes Bob Marley. Now you know what yours is worth, you must look for yours on earth, and now you see the light. You want to stand up for your life. Get up, stand up for your life. So, the resurrection, I cover the resurrection in spiritual philosophy. I allude to reincarnation. If I don't use the word specifically, I sure teach it. And so, when people get these books, they say, well, I don't have much time. I say, that's okay. You go to the bathroom, don't you? Put the book in the bathroom. And when you're in there, read a page or two, give you something to do besides. Oh, I don't know, I could do that. Okay, I guess I'll buy it. So, I wrote this book for all of us to use. You just pick out the articles that resonate with you and use them. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you don't have to, go through the same spiel with every person because they're all different, and the door of opportunity that you're going to open with each person will require a different key, depending on where they are and what they're interested in.
That's where your intuition should be used.
Yeah, and then, your intuition will tell you which arrow in your big sack of your quiver full of arrows, which arrow you're going to use, what subject you want to go into. So anyway, that's why I wrote a book. You can write an article, Ed, on the kingdoms of nature, the five kingdoms, and just one page. People don't want to read a lot, but they'll read one page, won't they, Andrew?
I hope so.
I found it to be, if not, I'll stand right there and read it to them. No.
Well, on Facebook, they'll only read about one quote, about 20 words, and that's it. That's as much attention you're going to get out of them.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is to have fun spreading the light. It's not a drudgery. It's something that you do because you enjoy. You enjoy getting an aha from the next person. Ah, I never thought of that. I'm going to look at that differently now. So, I've got 100 books out there like seeds that I've planted. I don't know who's going to come back and say, tell me more, tell me more. We'll see. Hasn't been out that long, but I have fun with it. And that's the main thing. And I know you all do too. Just have to, look for that opportunity and let spirit be your guide. Any other comments on that before we close? Or any comments on anything else for that matter? Anything anybody's been thinking about all week long that they want to discuss?
We're just a few hours away or so from the full moon, I think.
Oh, yeah, as a matter of fact, isn't Georgia
Cliff,
Is she on right at 8 o'clock?
Yeah, she's on right now.
We can wrap this up and then we can visit Georgia Lambert. Um, I want to just say this, that I think the greatest revelation is the molecular order. The whole idea that atoms can do what atoms have done. And even
Well,
just saying those simple words is gonna, what do you mean by that?
well,
And
I think that that's kind of a jingo or limerick, but the truth is that there's power in the group.
yeah, yeah. And how you look around and how many times do you hear join my team? It's, the teamwork makes the dream work. People are becoming more and more team oriented, group oriented, working together, kind of a thing. I think the doors are opening quickly and widely.
Well, I think that in the next year or so, we're going to have people being more willing to take the book from out the angel's hand, as the master said.
Yeah. Amen. Okay. Well, let's see. Hey, Cindy, would you like to do a mantra and close this meeting up here with us?
Okay, since it's full moon, let's do the great invocation.
Excellent.
Om. Point of light within the mind of God. Let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. Oh,
From the center where the will of God is
sorry
known.
about that. I got from the center where the will of God is known. Let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth.
Amen.
Oh,
Oh, oh. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank
Keep up the
you.
good work, you guys. Keep it up. You guys are doing great. And we'll
see you next.
see you next Thursday, Andrew.
You bet.
Okay.
Nice to see you, Andrew. Bye,
Likewise.
everybody.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay. Good eye, Ed.
Good day.
Good eye, Mike.